Today, we're diving into a really profound shift happening in medicine. It's about the moment AI stopped being just a fancy search engine and actually started to think more like a doctor. We're talking about a huge leap from finding information to truly reasoning with it, and it is changing absolutely everything.
This quote, well, it gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? This whole story isn't about AI replacing doctors, not at all. It's about empowering them with tools that, until now, were pretty much the stuff of science fiction. The very future of medicine is what's at stake.
So what do we actually mean by this logical leap? For years, we've thought of AI as a tool you use to go find stuff. You ask it a question, it gives you an answer. But now it's becoming a partner in understanding that information. And that's a fundamental change, and it's happening right now.
Okay, so what was the turning point? Well, according to the research, February 2026 was the moment everything pivoted. Before then, AI was mostly stochastic, which is a fancy way of saying it was just predicting the next most likely word. It was a pattern-matching machine. But then came a huge shift to what's called System 2 thinking. You know, the more deliberate, logical reasoning that we humans do. This kicked off what's being called the Agentic tsunami, a whole new wave of AI that prioritizes verifiable logic over just sounding plausible.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly. The old era, it was prone to hallucinations, literally just making stuff up, because it was just guessing what should come next. The new era, it's built on a foundation of logic that you can actually check. A doctor can follow its entire thought process, from A to B to C. No more black boxes.
So this is the new reality. It's a whole new ballgame. In medicine, this means we're moving past an AI that can just summarize a patient's chart to one that can actually synthesize the data and reason through a complex case, just like a true partner to a physician.
All right, so let's pop the hood and look at the engine that's actually driving this change. We're going to dive into a specific model that really shows what this new era is all about, BioReason R1.
So what exactly is BioReason R1? Well, you can think of it as an AI specifically designed for the tough stuff, for complex medical reasoning. Its entire purpose is to get past the flaws of the old models by making its whole diagnostic process totally transparent and auditable for a doctor.
So, how does it think? It uses something called a chain of thought process. So instead of just jumping to a conclusion, it first takes in all the patient data. Then, for every single step it takes, it justifies its reasoning. It even corrects itself as it goes before it delivers that final diagnosis that a doctor can then trace back step by step. It has to show its work, basically.
And the results? They're pretty staggering. BioReason R1 is hitting a 94.2% accuracy rate on the U.S. medical licensing exam Step 3 benchmarks. Now, this isn't just about passing a test. This is a test designed to measure high-level clinical reasoning. It's a huge deal.
And it's not just about raw accuracy. Get this. With a context window of over 2 million tokens, it can process a patient's entire 10-year medical history in one go. Just think about that. No more digging through fragmented records. It can see the whole picture, which is an absolute game changer for spotting those subtle, long-term patterns.
But you know what? This might be the most critical feature of all, transparency. The thinking trace lets a doctor audit the AI's entire causal path, from one lab result all the way to the final diagnosis. They never, ever have to just take the AI's word for it. And, as a huge bonus, it can run on a hospital's own local hardware, which means patient data stays secure and private.
Okay, so we've seen the tech. Now let's zoom out and look at how it's actually being used out in the real world, because it's already reshaping massive fields like clinical trials and genomics.
Here's a fantastic application. Finding the right patients for a clinical trial is a huge bottleneck in developing new drugs. It's slow, it's expensive. Well now, this new kind of AI, like what's being done at the Phase V AI Enrollment Lab, can actually model a study's protocol against real-world health records to predict how successful enrollment will be before a single dollar is spent. This is making research so much smarter and faster.
And its power in genomics is also just incredible. A recent study in Nature Medicine showed a model that was trained on 1.2 million whole genomes. And what could it do? It could predict complex cardiovascular risk with a C-index of 0.91. For those who don't know, that is an extremely high measure of predictive power. We are talking about a major step towards truly personalized preventative medicine.
If you ever want to see where the future is headed, just follow the money. And this chart tells a really clear story. There's been a massive pivot in venture capital.
80% of new funding is now pouring into what's being called Health Tech 2.0. These are autonomous systems that can reason and act. Meanwhile, the old legacy systems that just record data, they're getting a much smaller piece of the pie.
So this all brings us to our final, and maybe the most important, question. What does all this mean for the doctors themselves?
And here's the crucial takeaway. This is not about making doctors obsolete. It's about elevating their role. For decades, doctors have spent countless hours just manually piecing together scattered data. With AI taking over that grunt work, they can now focus on the high-level strategy, on complex problem-solving, and on patient care. They become the intellectual overseers of the whole system.
The big vision here is an automated clinical safety net. Just imagine a system that is continuously monitoring all patient data in the background, looking for subtle signals that a busy human might miss, and flagging potential issues months or even years before symptoms ever appear. This is the shift from reactive medicine to truly proactive healthcare.
And so this all leaves us with a pretty profound question to chew on. If AI is going to handle the heavy lifting of data synthesis and pure logic, what then becomes the most important skill for a doctor in the 21st century? How do you lead a clinical team when your most powerful partner is a machine? It's a fascinating and absolutely critical question as we step into this new era of medicine.